6 days, 2 days, 2 days, 2 days. So there is a sabbatical week of millenniums. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Again, creation lasted 6 days, and on the seventh day, what? He rested. He ceased from his labor. The 6 days of creation and the seventh-day rest is the blueprint for the table of mankind and for the timetable of mankind. So 4,000 years have passed, and so until now, 2,000 years or 2 days. Now, let's turn to something else. What is a blueprint? When you think of blueprints, what is a blueprint? A blueprint is the vision of an architect. Any architects in here? Anyone build on their house or added on and you either hired or, especially your wife might be a good architect saying, I need a sewing room, or I need this kind of room. Or the husband might say, you know what, I need a garage. I need a man cave. And so it's a vision that you have in your mind as to what you want. It's the plans of the builder. You have these plans. It's the building itself, additions and subtractions. When we bought this building, we didn't have blueprints, and we still don't have blueprints. We've had to make our own as we go along, because those used to be windows. There was windows right there, and there was windows over here. This used to be the front door. It used to have steps going down to the sidewalk, and the pulpit was over there, and they changed it around. If we want to get to the original, the way it was, what do we need to do? Go back to the original blueprints and return to the original plan. Well, the world has gone far away from the original plan. We've gone far away from, and we have all these models that we concoct. And so it's important for us to now go back and let's see if we could find from the original blueprint something we've missed, something that has been missed in the last 2,000 years, 4,000 years, or so. We want a biblical blueprint. I seek a biblical blueprint on the nature of Elohim, on last days, on who Yeshua is, on the feast. I want biblical blueprints on all these. And they're there. They're in here. But because of our limited understanding, by the way, some of the blueprint technicalities have not been revealed yet. The Torah tells us that what Adonai has revealed to us belongs to us and our children. But the secret things belong to him. He still has secret things. He still has mysteries that have not been uncovered. In fact, much of what we call the New Testament, the apostolic writings, was a mystery in Tanakh time. In Tanakh time, these were mysteries. They were hidden. And all of a sudden, Adonai revealed so much, a mystery. In fact, the word mysterion in the Greek is what Paul uses several times to discuss what he's revealing that had been hidden in Tanakh time. By the way, when I say Tanakh time, I'm talking about what the Catholics call Old Testament times, in the times of the Tanakh, because there is no such thing as an Old Testament. Yahweh is the master architect. In Genesis 1:14, then Elohim said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate day from night, and let them be for signs, otot, and for appointments, and for days and years. That word appointments over here, you see the word moed right there, moedim. Ul moedim. Otot, let them be for signs or pointers. This is the word otot. An ot is a sign. The McDonald's sign across the street, the golden arches, is an ot. Otot are symbols or signs that are out there that that we look to give us direction. And so the sun and the moon were made for that. Not only for day and night, but for otot. Some translations, by the way, where I put appointment here say seasons. They're for seasons. They're for festivals. Different, but the word there is appointment, as we're going to see. The purpose of the sun and moon, again, to separate day and night, 24 hours, for signs of thought, for festival seasons, moedim, for days and years, for our calendar. So we don't follow the Gregorian calendar. We don't follow the rabbinic calendar. We follow the biblical calendar. And by the way, this is very important. Never let anyone criticize you for what you eat or drink or about observance of annual festivals, new moons, or Sabbaths. These are a shadow of what was coming. The reality is the body of Messiah. So don't let, and people, remember, Colossians was written against the Gnostics. Not against the Jews, but against the Gnostics. It was the Gnostics that were telling the people there in Colossae, oh, you can't drink this, you can't drink that, you can't observe, you got to observe this, you got to do it. And Paul calls them empty, irrational things. And so it's important that not only what we eat or drink, but especially the annual festivals that we're talking about, the new moon, Sabbaths, are not to be criticized. So if anybody criticizes you, just point them to the reality of what they are, which we're going to see today, and let's go on. Again, these are 4 areas of criticism that they criticize us. Shadow versus reality. They criticize us because those are shadows. In fact, some translations say they are just mere shadows. No, they're not just mere shadows. They're shadows. Now, shadows and reality are very important, because what is a shadow? You see this young man right there. You see he's casting a shadow. Now, it's kind of hard to tell that this is his shadow. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's a shadow that he's casting. And so what is a shadow? Think of a shadow of a tree. You see a shadow of a tree, you know it's a tree, but is that a maple or is that an almond tree? Oh, you got to discern, and you got to see the reality. What's the reality? Oh, yeah, I could see, yeah, that's a maple. Or of a man with a knife. Now, if you're walking down the street and you see an alley, and from the alley, there's a shadow that's casting right on front of you, and the shadow is a man, and that man has a knife. That shadow is a shadow of a reality. You can't say, oh, it's just a shadow. Shadows can't hurt me. Well, you go through, and all of a sudden, that knife is going to come from the reality on you. So a shadow is a picture. A shadow is an otot. It's a pointer. It points you to something. Same thing with a picture. Pictures are important, but pictures are not the reality. When I was overseas, we were in Vietnam, and all these guys would get pictures of their wives or their girlfriends, and they'd put it up there on their locker, and at night, any of you done that? Kiss your wife's picture. Well, that's not your wife, but that's your wife's picture. By the way, if you had it there and somebody would put eyeglasses on it or mustache or, boy, man, you'd get into a fight because that's your wife. Well, that's not your wife, but that's your wife. It's a picture. It's a shadow of your wife. It's something that represents your wife. Now, if you were to come home from overseas and your wife would be and children would be meeting you there at the door, and you'd zoom past them to the mantle and start kissing the mantle, kissing the picture on the mantle, something's wrong, boy. You know, that's just a picture. Now you have the reality here. The feasts are pointers. They point us to a reality, and that reality is Yeshua. That's a picture of heavenly realities. The feasts are a blueprint of Yeshua. They're a blueprint of his life, and they are a blueprint of his ministry. Now, we mentioned go to Leviticus 23, 1 through 4. Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, these are my appointed feasts. These are my Moedim. It says the word Moedim. The appointed feast, the Moedim of Yahweh, which you are to proclaim. Another translation says, which you are summoned them to these sacred assemblies. They are sacred assemblies. These are appointed feasts of which Yahweh, the sacred assemblies you are to proclaim at their appointed times. So the Moedim are also sacred assemblies. The word appointed feast is the word Moedim. Everybody say Moedim with me. A Moed is a appointed time. A Moedim, appointed time. Sacred assemblies is the word in Hebrew, Mikra Kodesh. Mikra Kodesh. And the Moeds mean a date, a reservation, an appointment. When you make a date with someone, you're making a Moed. When you make a reservation for a plane, you're making a Moed. When you make an appointment with a dentist, you're making a Moed. These are Moedim. And we make Moedim all the time. Moedim aren't just religious. Moedim could be secular Moedim. It's just an appointed time, a reservation. Now the Mikra Kodesh, it uses the word Kodesh, sacred, Mikra Kodesh. The word Mikra means a meeting, a convocation, or a rehearsal. And they're holy meetings. Like right now we're having a Mikra Kodesh. We are told that every Sabbath you have a Mikra Kodesh. And we have convocations. And this is a rehearsal. Every Sabbath is a rehearsal, as we're going to see, for our eternal Shabbat. When someone dies, that's their Shabbat Shalom. You know, in graves, you've seen, in tombstones, you've seen the word R.I.P., RIP. Everybody says, why does all these things have RIP? Well, RIP means rest in peace. Rest in peace. In Hebrew, rest in peace is Shabbat Shalom, rest in peace. And so we will have an eternal rest in peace, Shabbat Shalom. The Moedim and Mikra Kodesh are one weekly appointment. Every one of us has one weekly appointment, and that's today. This is an appointment. This is a date. Adonai says, every seventh day, I have a date with you. Think of it. We're having a date with Adonai right now, and we're having an appointment with him. Make sure you reserve this day for the rest of your life. Now, we have 7 yearly appointments, 4 in the spring and 3 in the fall. And by the way, in the spring, we have one that we called Regelim, and in the late spring or early summer, we have a second, and then in fall, a third. So the first day of unleavened bread, Shavuot, and the first day of Sukkot are Regelim, or the 3 pilgrim festivals in these 7 yearly appointments. Of course, the Sabbath is a date with Adonai. We are to work 6 days, but the 7th is the Sabbath, a day of rest, a day of sacred assembly. That's why we're here. By the way, a lot of people say, well, I don't need to assemble. Well, Scripture says it's a day of sacred assembly. And the 7 feasts, again, are Passover, unleavened bread, Feast of First Fruits, Feast of Weeks, Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, and Feast of Tabernacles. Now the spring feast, just to catch us up, is Passover or Pesach, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Chag HaMatzah, the Feast of First Fruits, Yom HaBekurim, and the Feast of Weeks or Shavuot. The fall feasts are trumpets, Yom Teruah, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, and the Feast of Tabernacles or Sukkot. Again, most of you know all these. The biblical days of the feast from Leviticus 23. Passover is the 14th of Aviv of the first month. Unleavened bread is the 15th of Aviv of the first month. First fruits is the day after the Sabbath after Passover. And Pentecost is 50 days from first fruits. And then we have the harvest. And then comes the fall feast, which is the first day of the 7th month, Day of Atonement, the 10th day of the 7th month, and Tabernacles, the 15th day of the 7th month. Again, every one of us should have this memorized already. Now, Yeshua in the feast, Yeshua died on Passover. Now, this is key to my thesis. Yeshua died on Passover. He was buried in unleavened bread. He rose on first fruits and sent the Ruach HaKodesh on Pentecost. And right now we're living in the harvest. But the fall feasts are going to start, and on trumpets is the day of resurrection, atonement, the second coming, tabernacles, the millennial kingdom. So just as the first 4 feasts in the spring, Yeshua died, was buried, rose, and sent his Ruach on the very days. So the fall feasts are going to be his second coming. Now, between trumpets and atonement is 10 days. Between atonement and tabernacles is 5 days. So these 15 days between the resurrection and the rapture, by the way, and the second coming is only going to be 10 days. And this is part of my model, which is different than the model of the dispensationalism. So on Yeshua's first coming, on the 14th of Aviv, had the Passover meal. He had the Passover meal on the 14th, was crucified on the 14th, and died on the 14th. And a lot of people think that Passover is on the 15th. It's not. It's the 14th. He was buried on unleavened bread. On the day after the Sabbath, he rose. There was 3 days and 3 nights over here. And then Pentecost, 50 days from Yom HaBekurim. Now in Yeshua's second coming, on the Feast of Trumpets, when the Feast of Trumpets comes, it's going to be the first day of the 7th month. This is Yom Teruah, what Rabbinic Judaism mistakenly calls Rosh Hashanah. That's his resurrection. That the resurrection occurs, and there's 10 days interim from trumpets or the resurrection to the Day of Atonement or Yom Kippur, which is the 10th of the 7th month, which is the second coming of Yeshua. And there's 5 days interim from the Day of Atonement to Tabernacles. So when Yeshua comes, we are going to be raptured over here, resurrection and raptured over here. And then this is when the beast system, which is already starting to operate throughout the world in the New World Order, and all these people are part of it. The Clintons, the Bidens, and all these people, the Soros, all these people are part of that beast system that is starting already. And then the Day of Atonement is the second coming. So between the resurrection and the second coming is only 10 days, not 7 years. Not 7 years. And then Tabernacles comes. Now, several even Messianic Jews are saying that maybe this coming Feast of Tabernacles, Yeshua will come to rapture us away. No, it cannot happen till after the man of sin has been revealed. The rapture, resurrection can't happen till after that, and it'll happen at the end of the 7 years, as we will see. Again, this is the dispensational model, and the dispensational model teaches that the resurrection rapture will happen here, and then the 7-year period, with the Antichrist, the abomination of desolation in the middle, and then the second coming. This model, I believe, is incorrect. Again, if anybody has a different model, please put it on paper and show it to me, or get it from your favorite theology book and Xerox it. And I'm not supposed to say Xerox. Copy it. Someone got upset at me because I said Xerox it. Well, Xerox is what originally was. Well, let's go on. This is my model, my feast model. Same thing, church age. Right now we're in the E here. Since the death of Yeshua, we're in the gospel age, and the new covenant age. And then there's going to be a 7-year covenant. Remember, Daniel 9:27, a 7-year covenant. And at the middle of the covenant, the anti-Messiah is going, the temple is going to be rebuilt. Remember, the resurrection can't happen until after the rebuilt of the kingdom and after the anti-Messiah. And the last 3 years are what's called the Great Tribulation. And then at that point, 10 days before the second coming is the resurrection, rapture. And then 10 days later is the second coming, and then the kingdom. And again, all that continues to be the same. Here is the 7-year covenant. There is a 3.5 years, abomination of desolation. Another 3.5 years, this is the Great Tribulation. And then the resurrection, rapture, the Bema seat, second coming, kingdom. The spring feast, now look at this. I want you to see this. In the spring feast, one of the things that we see is Yeshua died on Passover. How many agree that Yeshua died on Passover? Okay. He died on Passover. He was buried on unleavened bread. And from the grave, he resurrected on first fruits. There is 3 days between the burial and the first fruits. 3 days and 3 nights. As Jonah was in the belly of the earth 3 days and 3 nights, so the Son of Man will be on the belly of the great fish 3 days and 3 nights. So Yeshua did Passover on Tuesday night, which was the 14th of Aviv. On Wednesday day, which was still the 14th of Aviv in the biblical calendar, Yeshua died on the same day. And as the sun went down, he was buried on the 15th on first day of unleavened bread. And then 3 days and 3 nights on a first day of the week, which was a Sunday, is the day of first fruits, is when he rose. And then 50 days to Pentecost. And then we are in the harvest time. We don't know how long. And then the Feast of Trumpets. Now, the Feast of Trumpets is the Feast of the Resurrection. And then from trumpets to atonement is 10 days. Then from atonement, when Yeshua comes back and takes over Jerusalem, remember, the book of Revelation occurs between trumpets and atonement. And then the second coming, Yeshua comes back, throws the anti-Messiah and the false prophet into the lake of fire. And for 5 days, he mops up Jerusalem and starts the building the fourth temple. Because remember, anti-Messiah is going to build, right here, anti-Messiah is going to build a third temple. And then Yeshua is going to build Ezekiel's temple at the end. Now, here is the first and second coming, exactly what we had there. But watch this. Here's the death, burial, resurrection, Holy Spirit, resurrection, rapture, second coming, and the kingdom. So, this and this, look how they fit together. The first and second comings, the spring and fall feasts. These are the spring and fall feasts of Leviticus 23. Here's the first and second comings. And so, again, the fall feast, which is what we're going to be studying, is the Feast of Trumpets. This is the day of Yahweh, 10 days. This is the fall of the beast system. Woe, Babylon, the great has fallen. So all the beast system between the first and the 10th day. See, Adonai has not appointed us unto wrath. These 10 days are the wrath of Adonai against the beast system. Before trumpets is the wrath of the beast against Adonai and his people. As we're starting to see the beast system arise, they're going to come against us more and more, to the point that soon we might have to start meeting underground. We might have to start selling the buildings, and I'm talking about churches in general, synagogues selling buildings and meeting underground, like in the first centuries. Again, the fall feast, trumpets, Day of Atonement, tabernacles, resurrection, second coming, kingdom. Look how the fall feast fit together. Now, Matthew 24:29, immediately after the tribulation of those days. Matthew 24:14 says, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come. So therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation in verse 15, because they didn't have verses back then. So Yeshua says, this gospel of the kingdom, not the gospel of churches, but the gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all goyim, all nations, and then the end will come. And as soon as he says, and then the end will come, therefore. Now every time you see a therefore, there's a wherefore. And then the end will come, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation. So when the abomination of desolation occurs, that's the beginning of the end. That's the end. And at that point, between Matthew 15 and 29, we have the great tribulation. And then in 29, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light. And then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man. And then all the tribes of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And so there's going to be this Son of Man coming in the clouds. He's going to come with his angels. He's going to come with a loud trumpet call, and he's going to gather his elect. And this is at the end, after the abomination of desolation in 15 and all the things that occur between 15 and 29. Now I say this, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of Elohim. Neither does corruption inherit incorruption. Behold, I show you a mystery. Here's the word mysterion. This was unknown to Abraham. This was unknown even to Daniel, Zechariah. They didn't know about this. But I'm going to show you a mystery. And remember what a mystery is. There's no such thing as secret novels. Secret is for eyes only. Whoever knows that, whoever has that. But a mystery is for everybody. It's for something that will be unveiled at the end. That's why when I read mystery novels, I have to read the last chapter, so I know who done it. So I don't have that anxiety of, throughout the, who was this, who did this. So we've read the last chapters of Scripture in the last days, and we know who done it. We know why, and we know who's coming. And he's coming. We know the mystery. I'm going to show you a mystery, unveil a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. By the way, the word sleep there is die. This is a perfect, don't you guys think this is a perfect nursery verse? We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. Doesn't that make a good nursery verse? For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. Make sure you always get that right when you're reading it. This mortal must put on immortality. Again, we're going to twinkle in an eye, the last trump. For the Master himself shall descend with a cry of command, with the voice of the archangel, with the sound of a trumpet of Elohim. And the dead in Messiah will rise first. Rise first. Then we who are alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet Adonai in the air, our Master. And so we will always be with the Master. Again, clouds caught up together. Word caught up in the Greek means to be grabbed out. In Spanish, to be grabbed out. And so it's the word for grabbing out, catching up together. And so we see this, it's going to happen. So next week we will go to part 2, and we'll continue here in part 2. And I think we got a little bit of time. We got about 10, 15 minutes of time. So I'm going to do something that we usually don't do since we're not on air. Shalom, shalom. Welcome to Olive Tree Fellowship and Torah Unleashed Ministries. Thank you for joining us on our channel. If you have enjoyed this teaching and would like to see more, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the notification bell so that you can be notified when we have new videos. If you would like to support Olive Tree Fellowship and Torah Unleashed Ministries, please visit us at olivetreefellowship.com or torahunleashed.org. We thank you for your past support and hope to continue with you. Shalom, shalom. Have a good day. Shalom, shalom y bienvenidos a Olive Tree y a la Torah desatada. Les doy gracias a ustedes y a Adonai por su apoyo que nos han dado aquí. Y si quieren continuar a hacer una donación, pueden ir aquí en torahunleashed.org o en olivetreefellowship.com y ahí pueden dar una donación. Su apoyo, su ayuda es importante en estos días. Shalom, shalom.